This is Jennifer Gonzalez, welcoming you to episode 276 of the Cult of Pedagogy podcast. In this episode, we're going to learn about a classroom ritual one teacher uses to have students regularly give affirmations to each other. One of the biggest benefits of attending school, apart from academics, is being with other people. Sitting in the same room with the same group for 180 days a year, navigating social awkwardness, academic challenges, boredom, hilarity, embarrassment, confusion, curiosity, and constant change. Doing school in person with other people gives us a unique opportunity to learn about ourselves and each other with an intensity that is hard to match in any setting after graduation. But as educators, we don't always make the most of this time. The pressures of pacing guides and testing make it hard to prioritize the interpersonal stuff. Meanwhile, the constant pull of screens and our post-pandemic tendency to retreat from anything social make it feel even more urgent to use the time we do have together well. One of the best ways to not let this opportunity pass by is to use some kind of system or ritual for connection, something that makes the interpersonal stuff part of our regular routine. I've covered a lot of these kinds of systems and strategies in the past, but I'm always excited to hear about new ones. So when today's guest told me about his system for student peer affirmations, I knew I wanted him to share it. This is Marcus Luther's fourth time on the podcast, making him, I believe, my most frequent guest to date. He talked about poetry gallery walks in episode 186, learning stories for student reflections on episode 213, and student exemplars in episode 258. His ideas are always fresh, effective, student-centered, and easy to implement. Today's is no different. In this episode, Marcus will be talking about the routine he built for helping students recognize and name specific character qualities in each other. Things like self-efficacy, depth, and generosity. Students anonymously nominate their classmates for these classroom values, writing out the specific reasons behind each nomination. Over time, this ritual helps students see their own strengths more clearly, gives them character-driven goals to strive for instead of just academic ones, and helps them build the skill of noticing and naming these qualities in other people, a life skill most of us are never explicitly taught. Marcus wrote a guest post about how this system works, and in our conversation, he takes us through it step by step, how the values are chosen, how the nominations work, and what changes when students start actually practicing this kind of attention toward each other. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Alpaca for sponsoring this episode. If you're a school leader or you're the one in charge of setting the tone at your school, you know this one. It's a Tuesday in August, your team will be returning to school soon, and you're thinking, I really should do something to kick off the year right. You open 20 tabs looking for an activity that doesn't feel cheesy, and 45 minutes later, you close the laptop and just do what you did last year. That's exactly why Alpaca built their free resource library. You might know Alpaca from episode 230, when CEO Karen Borchert taught us about semantic pulse surveys. Alpaca's Little Wins library is a whole toolkit for building school culture. It's organized by the moment you're in, from back to school to the mid-year slump to testing season. And every resource comes ready to run with step-by-step instructions and the tools and templates to bring it to life. It's completely free, it's ready today, and it's backed by thousands of data points on what teachers say makes an impact for them at work, so you know where to start and what really makes a difference. Head to getalpaca.com/pedagogy and grab what you need for week 1. And while the library helps you build your culture, Alpaca Pulse helps you measure it. It's their school leadership platform that checks in with your staff and shows you in real time how your teachers are really doing. Cult of Pedagogy listeners get 15% off their first year. Again, that link is getalpaca.com/pedagogy. Support also comes from notability. Trying to keep track of everything you learn at conferences, in grad school, or even in a packed staff meeting, Notability is an all-in-one note-taking and learning app that helps you capture ideas in the way that works best for you. You can handwrite or type notes, annotate PDFs, and record audio alongside your work. Then, with Notability's tools, you can generate transcripts and summaries from recordings and turn key material into quizzes and flashcards for easier review later on. It's a practical tool for educators who are constantly learning, organizing, and coming back to ideas over time. Go to notability.com today and use code pedagogy25 at checkout to get 25% off a subscription. That's notability.com, and the code is pedagogy25. Now, here's my conversation with Marcus Luther about his fantastic peer affirmation system. Hello, Marcus. Welcome back.
Hello.
This is your fourth time. I think this is really exciting because I haven't had anybody write for me 4 times. And so you're like my most frequent guest at this point.
Well, it's an honor. I always love talking with you. I remember it's a little bit different. Like back in the day, I think it was me replying to like a random post on Twitter. And then you asked, hey, can you write something? And now it's become this thing. So I very much enjoy it. It's something I love talking about the classroom during the summer too, because it gets me excited about the upcoming school year.
Yes. And so now we've developed this system where you just email me and you say, hey, here's something else really great that I do that works really well. And I'm just like, okay, let's do it. And so this time we are talking about this system of affirmations that you do with your students. And before we close out, we're going to give people an opportunity to like where they can find you online and everything like that. But let's dive into this octopus system. So we'll start with, let's just explain, like, what do you mean when you say affirmations?
I feel like the combination of like my goal is I want students to feel seen and celebrated in the classroom as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And I also feel like that's a skill. Like all of us in life benefit if we're both able to receive affirmation, but also to look for opportunities to give affirmation for each other. And that's something I want to be a lived experience in our classroom as much as possible. And something that, quite frankly, I don't think I designed my classroom for early on. Like I've shared with at times about how, like, at the end of my first year of teaching, I did a survey, anonymous survey, and had students rank, like, how did they feel about X, Y, or Z? And I actually felt pretty good as a first year teacher about like the learning, and like got good feedback from family members, but students didn't necessarily feel cared about as people in the classroom. And I was kind of surprised. I'm like, guys, like, I care about you, but like, I didn't do enough to make it explicit and to create space for it in the classroom. So like, this is definitely born of that. Like that, I can still remember like opening up that survey and being like, man, like I need to be better. So this is part of like my path towards better. And it's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Okay, man, that's just such a really, like, that's such a great insight, because we can care a lot about people, and if they don't feel cared for, then there's like a missing link somehow. And so you developed this system over the years of having students sort of formally give each other these affirmations. So I'm going to just sort of let you talk us through what that system looks like. If you want to talk about how it evolved, you can. But really, the whole point of this is that you think, and I believe too, that teachers should try something like this. And so if they hear your process, and we're going to be releasing this before almost everybody's school year starts, so teachers could really try this year. So talk us through it.
Of course. And I think I have to like start off by like shouting out my now wife. When we first started dating, like, she was a 5th grade teacher, and she was an incredible classroom culture teacher from the get-go. And there's 2 things in her classroom that, like, just like for me was like sparked an idea, because I was a high school teacher at the time. And one was that she had this like really big like poster about like this idea of like a duck being calm on the surface, but like paddling underneath. And it was like this like vision of, hey, this is a value I want to be true in our classroom. Like, oh, like, and using like an animal to kind of explain that value. And then also she had this habit of, from time to time, having her students write notes of affirmation to each other. And these were fifth graders. So the notes were, they're cute to read and they're funny at times.
Mm.
They weren't super elaborate. And I was like, oh, and I'm coming off of like wanting to be better at things like this. So, and I was a big John Wooden fan at the time. So like the
Mm-hmm.
first version of this, I tried to do like a pyramid of success, which is something he's famous for, where I thought about what are the values that I want to be true in my classroom. And I think a lot of teachers do something like this. They say like, oh, these are
Yeah.
our top values. Sometimes schools have top values,
Mm-hmm.
or other teachers co-create these values with students, especially if they only have like one class period. It's a little bit easier to do that as opposed to
Mm.
having different values for every single class period.
Yeah.
But saying, but my problem was those values would just like live on the wall and gather dust as posters. Like I'd have the posters of like, these are the values of our classroom, and we wouldn't ever come back to them. So this is also like a result of me saying, how can we make these a lived part of our classroom experience much more frequently?
Mm.
So after introducing the values and after talking through what they mean in our classroom, and for in our classroom attaching an analogy to each one. So for example, with perspective, we use the six blindfolded men and the elephant and the story behind that, and use that as a way for students to kind of understand, here's what we mean by this. What are your top values? We do a survey, we talk about it, we share, and then we get to this thing, this system. And if you're reading this post and you see the octopus version, like it is not an octopus system. That's just our weird iteration in our classroom. It's a pretty simple thing. It's saying, here are the values of our classroom. Who are students who are living out those values and making our classroom better, and giving students space to write down and share what those are so that we can then celebrate their classmates. And
Yes.
it is something that we've been doing for a long time now, and over 10 years. And it's some like tweaks and adjustments over time. But I've seen this work in ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, all different contexts. Of course, it came from a fifth grade classroom. And I kid you not, it is one of the more transformative spaces in our classroom, in part because it's creating time and space for affirmation, not just
Mm.
putting a poster on the wall, but actually saying we're going to carve out time and make this a ritual, something we do regularly in our classroom. I think that's pretty powerful. So that'd be like my
Yeah.
like opening pitch of like what this is.
It's this is giving me a couple thoughts. First of all, it's reminding me of the Compliments Project. I don't know if you ever saw that video that I posted. Okay, I'll send this to you and we can maybe even attach it to this, because it was a thing that a teacher did where she had students come up one at a time and they would sit in front of the board facing away, and all of their classmates would write compliments to them. And only when they were finished would they turn around and look at what everybody said. And it's like such a tearjerker of a video. And what you're doing is really taking it at a level up and really making it less sort of generic compliments, into much more specific affirmations. And also, this idea of creating a system is, because I think that so many teachers in their hearts would say, I want my students to feel seen and affirmed and known and all of that. And yet it slips through the cracks unless you create systems. So
Oh,
that's what you're doing. Yeah.
yeah, I think system is the important word, and system's a very easy word to say and
Mm-hmm.
then to actually like follow through. Because I'll be honest, the first time you do this in a normal school year, I have 6 different class periods. I have 150 to 180 students. It might go well in 4 classes, and then 2 classes we got to do some work to make this system, really come to life. So I think what happens if you're like, oh, I just want to try this out one time, and
Yeah.
then it doesn't work. Sometimes it's like, okay, I don't want to touch this at all anymore. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that I am reminded that you want to have like a almost like work backwards from like, okay, I can see what this can become. Let me do the work to get there. Because on that front end day, the first time you do it, you might not get the quality of affirmations or notes from students that you might get at the end of the year. Because at the end of the year is where it really pays off. So
Mm.
I think how you introduce it, part of it's like
Mhm.
committing to it being a system and saying, hey, this is something I want to make happen in my classroom. And
Yeah.
kind of like honoring that commitment to yourself and to your students.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned how many students you have, because that's huge. There's going to be a lot of people going, I could never do this. I have too many kids. No, you don't. You're doing it with a huge amount. And also, let's make sure that we get to some of that sort of troubleshooting when you talk about it not going well, maybe the first time, some of the things that you've learned about how to like kind of fix that. But for now, go ahead and tell me how you sort of roll this out to them.
Yes. And I think like the first time is the most important time because it's
Yeah.
gonna, in some ways, it's gonna throw up a barrier to you. So I think the first part is like I try to explain to them that this is one of many ways I'm trying to like almost build a tool belt of different ways to recognize awesome things about the students in my classroom. Because when I was going through school, it was like, okay, best grade, here's your reward. Maybe, you're really good on the athletic field, here's your trophy.
Yeah.
But that was kind of it. And as a
Mm-hmm.
teacher, I want to have different ways of recognizing students. That's why last time I was on here, we talked about the beautiful words wall of like different cool
Mm-hmm.
versions of writing. They weren't the students who had the best essay scores. They were just writing really cool sentences. This for me is a different way of seeing what students are doing that makes our classroom better and seeing it through their eyes. Because if it's just me picking people, that's different than students naming each other. So I try to talk
Yeah.
to them about like the purpose of it. I also, and this is something that I think would look different at different ages, I explain to them not every student's going to get nominated all the time. And like that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Some students go through school more quietly, or at least at the beginning of the school year, they might not be as vocal and collaborative as other classmates. And that's okay. This is just me. I don't think by having a system like this, you need to make sure everyone gets recognized in the exact same way, because that, in my mind, defeats the authenticity in the eyes of
Yeah.
students. And
Mm-hmm.
I think just giving that permission structure early on is really important. I
Mm.
also know that based on the students I have, I might scaffold a little bit. I might have, here's 5 sample nominations from a previous year, what these nominations could look like, and have those on the board while they're filling those out. I may even start off by saying, let me give a nomination based on what I've seen for every single one of our values. So you can kind of get an example. We'll start the system. And now next time you guys are going to do it. So there's
Mm.
different ways to building an on-ramp to there. I
Yeah.
even sometimes in recent years, I will make sure that I have a space where it's like, hey, I'm not sure who else to nominate. Here's something I'm proud of myself for, and I'm going to fill out the form for myself. They might not sign the wall, but that gives them something to do. So they're not just like staring
Mm.
and wondering what to write about. So I've tried to find different ways to do this.
Yeah.
I also think that what I've realized is that when it doesn't go well, that's also kind of an opportunity for you to reflect as a teacher about what could you do differently in your classroom to make nominating each other easier. Because if I'm standing at the front of the room and lecturing every single day and kids are not interacting with each other, this system won't work very well.
Yeah.
If I have students who are like walking to the classroom and opening up their computers and going on like a personalized chat bot the entire class period
Yep.
without any interaction, this won't work very well, right? Like, so
Such good
the
points.
the
Yeah.
fact that they can nominate each other is almost another way of saying, oh, they're getting to know each other. Like in our classroom, in their
Yeah.
spiral notebooks, they have classroom rosters with everyone's names on there with values attached to them from our opening activities. So like they can literally open up their spiral notebook and be like, oh, here's all my classmates. Cause I'll have
Yeah.
some classes of 30, 35 students. And I don't want them just to nominate their best friend all the time too.
Wait, repeat that one more time. You give every student a classroom roster at the beginning of the school year?
Oh yeah, so it's when week 2 we set up our spiral notebooks. Week
Mm-hmm.
1, our opening survey partly includes a top value reflection, so they share what their top value is. So
Okay.
I then have a list of all the students in my class, and sometimes like schedules change week 1, so I wait a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I have a list of all the students and all of their top values. And I use that for my roster. I'm like old school. Like they're walking in, I've got my clipboard. I'm like, oh, you're here, you're here. But then
Yeah.
like literally throughout the year, I have their top values on a clipboard, which is great to reference for all sorts of conversations. It's a fun thing.
Right.
But also, I print out a copy for them to tape on the inside cover of their spiral notebook so that they have each other's names and top values. Because I work at a school of 2,000 students. I also got
Yes.
the idea of putting a roster on in their spiral. I got from my colleague Andrea James. I added the value part to it, but like it's like that's such an easy solution, right? Like just
Yes.
like, oh,
Marcus,
just give
I've
them each other's
literally
names.
never heard of a teacher ever doing that. I've been doing this for 13 years. I taught for 8. I never once saw a teacher give and that's like, duh.
Yeah, it's
Oh my
sometimes there
gosh.
are easy things, and I will admit, I grew
Yes.
up in a small school. Like my dad grew up there, my grandpa grew up
Yeah.
there. We didn't need one of those. We knew each other.
Right.
Same where I started my career in some smaller schools. I'm at a school of 2,000. Most of my students do not know each other when they walk
Yes.
into that space, and that's the work, right? And an easy step in that work is just add a roster, like, and it's fun.
That's
You know, you can play some games with it. We actually have also added to it in recent years. I think it's Kyle Nemus did this. Uh, at the start of the year, they share a fun, interesting, or boring fact about themselves to kind of take the pressure down, where it's just like, tell me something
Mm.
interesting. And then I write
Mm-hmm.
down those interesting or boring facts on the roster too. And then we can play like
Yeah.
sort of guessing games. Like, who do you think this is? Who do you think this is?
Yeah.
So again, so let's say you do this survey and students are like, I don't know everyone's names. I'm like, okay, I got to fix that. Right.
Yeah.
So I think part of this system and why I believe so much in it is because it's not just this isolated thing. It's a mirror for you to think
Yeah.
about what you're doing as a teacher to facilitate community in your classroom.
Right. Right. Okay. So you, first of all, the modeling is key to showing them examples of what a sort of like high quality affirmation looks like is great. And so then they submit them through, you use a Google form to have
Yep.
them submit. And I would imagine this takes a whole lot of the work down for you in terms of collating and sorting them.
Oh, 100%. Like when I
Okay.
started this system, it was like I'd add it to like the printed worksheets at the end, like a question at the end, or have them write it on notebook paper or index card. And then I had, if you can imagine, 6 different class periods, 150 to 180 students. It's like you have these stacks of papers, you're paper clipping them, you're trying not to lose them, you're flipping through them. If you have a Google form set up, you can just copy and paste that Google form or that question onto other exit tickets very easily. So it's a very easy,
Yeah.
replicable system that saves time. I'm including a template of that so you
Mm-hmm.
can see what that looks like in the post. And it's a very simple thing. It's also something that takes about 5 minutes to do in a given class period, where it's like, hey, you're already on our Canvas webpage, or you're already doing this other thing. Today we're doing nominations, so please make sure you do that as well. And you can also be really intentional about when, because it's such a simple system. It's like, oh, we just did a bunch of collaborative stuff this week. It'd be a
Yeah.
great time to ask for peer nominations. We just did a fishbowl seminar. That'd be a great time to do nominations. So because it's more flexible, you can then
Yeah.
ask at the right time.
Okay. I've so many questions are coming up. When you, and I didn't ask you this, by the way, everybody listening, Marcus is writing a full blog post describing this whole system, so that you'll be able to find that later. Do you have any examples of like really cool affirmations, like kids' words that where they have nominated each other? I should have prepped you for this ahead of time, but like, what have been some of the ones that you've gotten that sort of stand out in your memory?
Well, they're all over the place, and I'm pulling up my most recent year right now. And this
Okay.
is one of the nice things about, so what I do, and this is me being someone who loves Google Drive and loves Google
Same.
Sheets. So I'm not saying that
Uh-huh.
this is replicable for every single person, but when I get my Google form responses, I then just go through and copy whatever ones that we're going to actually fill out, and I just add them to that Google sheet as notes. So I just click on the cell, add a note, there
Yeah.
it is. And it's so nice to have, and we'll probably talk about this, a
Yeah.
massive spreadsheet of all these really cool things that students said about each other. And like I had a
Yeah.
student, just an example was they were they'd just been awarded like a local community award, and they're asking teachers about like for a local newspaper article, hey, like what are some things that we should say, like praise the student, like what would you say about them? And I'm like, actually, let me pull up the spreadsheet from 2 years ago when they were in my class, and here's what their classmates actually said about them on
Oh my
anonymous
gosh.
forums. So yes, I'm like very oddly organized with Google Drive and stuff. So I'm not saying that everyone
Mm-hmm.
has to do it that way, but even like I wasn't prepared for this and you asked me to pull it up. And
And
I
you've got it right
so
there.
yeah, I'm gonna read through this like some random ones. So like
Yeah.
this, and I always, whenever I read them aloud, I always just take out the student name, because then it's fun when we nominate them, say, oh, this
Yeah.
is blank. So I'm just gonna go through that here because I'm gonna
Okay.
give the names. So this student has seen significant improvements, especially since middle school and freshman year, and hearing them engage in discussions and taking care of business in class makes me just really want to commend their efforts. And I'm really excited about how far they'll go this year. That's a direct quote from this last school year.
Okay.
Another person, this student reads between the lines and can talk about our readings with depth and understanding. This student
Nice.
has empathy towards others. They're always willing to help everyone else in our classroom. This
Mm.
student makes me become curious in my own work based on the questions they ask about the stories and poems that we're reading, which makes me more willing to do the work in our classroom. So those are just like me picking the first 4 that popped up.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I notice over time is they get better at nominating each other.
Yeah.
And they're really good about saying, here's what this student is doing. Here's how it's impacting me. And I think and you can imagine if I'm reading 10 or 15 of these out in class, and then we're going through it, and we'll talk about like the ritual and like the sign in the wall part, but like students are getting to hear what classmates are saying about each other. And I feel like they're modeling to each other. So I start the year off by, of course, giving them examples, but eventually like they take grasp of it. And it's like they're making these nominations for each other.
Yeah. So, okay. When you receive these, then you have a period of time where you sort of announce them and you have the kids go and sign the octopus, which is each leg has a different value. They nominate each other for the value with a description.
Yeah.
If everybody is required to submit, so you got 30 kids in a class, they're all submitting nominations, like, do you then read out all 30 of them? Like what do you do to manage the time on that?
So stepping back, so in our classroom, we have a poster for each of the values on the wall. In our classroom, it's arranged, and I'm sure there'll be at least one picture in the post in the form of an octopus, just to stick with our analogy of curiosity that we lean on in our classroom. But like, you don't have to do the octopus thing. You can just have I used to have just square posters, like where you write down like depth or curiosity. So let's say a class of students filled out this Google form. And again, I gave some students something like that opt out. Like if you don't have anyone to nominate, you could write something about yourself. So you might not get 100%. Students might be absent that day. But then the other thing you're going to get is you're going to get a lot of repeat nominations where hey, like, Jen got nominated by 8 other classmates. So I'm just going to pick one of those. Or I might get someone who's been nominated for something that they've already been nominated for. And I actually say that before we start reading those. So it's like, especially midway later in the year, it's like, hey, you're only going to sign if it's something that you haven't been nominated for before. And this is where I feel like having a wide range of values can be really powerful, because you have those students who are like super engaged and collaborative and they're always sharing ideas. They might get nominated for those posters really early in the year. And then they keep getting nominated for them, but then they kind of stop signing the wall. It's like, well, there's these other things that matter too. Like, do your classmates feel like you're showing empathy towards them? Or that you're really being reflective, or whatever the values are of your classroom. So it's kind of a nice push for those students to be like, I haven't signed that one yet. I've literally heard like students, like I had one of the football players this last year. He's on our varsity football team. And I overheard him standing next with his friend to the wall. And he's like, yeah, I've signed for this one and this one. I haven't signed for empathy yet, but I've still got to work on it. It's like a different rubric in a way for like how they show up in the classroom.
Hey, this is Jen with a quick interruption to tell you about a project I've been working on that's almost ready. My online course, Mastering the Lesson Plan. We're living in a time when teaching seems to get more and more challenging. There are so many factors outside of your control. But one thing you can get right is your lesson plan. There are time-tested fundamental principles for lesson plan design. And if you understand them well and follow them closely, your students will learn better and you'll feel more satisfied with your work. If you're already a master teacher, you've probably already internalized most of these principles. For everyone else, from brand new teachers to those who just want to do better, grounding yourself in the fundamentals will dramatically improve your teaching. Mastering the lesson plan will teach you how to build solid, engaging lesson plans and sequence them into comprehensive units of instruction. In 5 modules, I show you how to start with standards and write clear, measurable objectives, then design an effective assessment plan, choose and sequence the learning experiences that will get students to succeed on those assessments, and select strategies to meet the diverse needs your students bring to the classroom. I use sample unit plans as models, so it's really concrete. I don't just give you abstract ideas about how to teach, I show you with real examples. Every lesson starts with a video where I explain each concept and process in clear, simple language. While you watch, you can use the printable workbook that has guided notes to fill out so you stay on track, plus space to take your own notes. If you have questions, there's an open comment section at the end of every video lesson, moderated by experienced human teachers, so you can get timely answers to your specific questions. At the end of every module, I offer a next steps assignment you can apply to your own teaching, plus a quiz to check your understanding. And here's what I think is the best part. After the 5 modules, you'll find a huge library of teaching, assessment, and differentiation strategies you can use again and again. So even after you get the fundamentals down, the course will continue to provide value for the rest of your teaching career. I'm also including a library of templates you can make your own. Unit plans, rubrics, and slide decks I designed myself by hand that will help you get your materials together faster and in style. At the time of this recording, I'm still finishing the course, but I am determined to have it done by the end of summer 2026. I'm building a waiting list of people who want to be notified as soon as it's ready. So if you're listening in mid-2026, head over to cultofpedagogy.com/teaching101 and click on Mastering the Lesson Plan. From there, you can learn more about the course and either join the waiting list, or if you are from the future, get it right away. Do they, if somebody gets several nominations on a day and you end up not reading them out because they're sort of like duplicates or whatever, do they ever get access to see all of the things that they've been nominated for just privately, or does that just something that stays on your spreadsheet?
It definitely stays on my spreadsheet, and I have all of this. And then it's kind of like, in my mind, I have this awesome toolkit of things I can use whenever I want to. Some examples of how this shows up beyond the wall. Let's say a student's been struggling a bit. Call them over to your desk or hang them back after class. I want to just remind you, here's some things your classmates have said about you. The random family email. Hey, just so you know, I just had 7 different people in class nominate your student, your kid, for making our classroom better. Can I just share with you some things they've said? And again, copy. This isn't taking me a ton of time. They're already written out. Trust me, the responses when parents get those emails, and again, it's an easy thing. We all want to do these things, right? We want to encourage students. We want to celebrate students to their families. We just need, the ammunition in a way, right?
Yes.
This for me is one of those things that it's a system that begets so much other good things, because it gives me a tool where I can then find other ways to uplift and support students. And I'm starting to learn about my classmates, because sometimes it's these quiet students who I did not notice were having a positive impact, but their group members, no matter what group they're in, keep nominating them. This student's doing something that I had no idea, because I got 36 kids in my class and I don't necessarily, catch everything.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's so many benefits once this becomes a system that's worth pushing through. It's worth, hey, the first couple of times we do this, it might not be perfect. Maybe the first year I try this out, I might want to make some adjustments after year 1.
Yeah.
But as someone who's been doing this for a decade in all different types of contexts at the high school level, I really, really believe in this, because there's so many ways it can show up positively in how you build classroom community with students.
Yeah. You also mentioned writing letters of recommendation. Anybody that's working with juniors and seniors has a lot of those letters of recommendation to write. And I think sometimes it's a struggle to come up with stuff to put in there beyond just grades or whatever. And so this gives you all kinds of material for that too.
Oh, when I one of my routines, because I teach a bunch of high school English juniors, and at the very end of the year, I get those knocks on the door. I'm like, okay, tell me now. It's a lot easier than in the fall when I'm busy. And then my goal is do one a day over the summer, and I can pare that list down. My first step when I write these letters is I go to the spreadsheet. I'm like, okay, before I know what I want to say about them, but what did their classmates say about them? And that's a great thing to add to a letter of recommendation. Here's some direct quotes from their classmates. So again, there's many, many benefits for this.
Yeah. Okay. So Marcus, how many times over the course of a semester do you intake and announce nominations?
My goal where I've settled is about every 2 to 3 weeks. I'm on a block schedule, so I see students 3 times a week. You see everyone on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday it rotates, Thursday, Friday it rotates. So when I used to teach, a normal schedule, I'll just call it a Monday through Friday, I see students every day. I would do it about every 2 weeks. And it was actually a really fun, every Friday, the last thing we did was you'd have students cheering for each other as they left the room. It's hey, so you might have had a tough week, but it's you can guarantee we're gonna have a good ending to the week. Right. So I've seen it between like the 2 to 3 week range. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely something you need to create time for, and something that you get busy and you can forget. But
Yeah.
so usually about a 1 week turnaround of, hey, I gave the survey, I went through the results, I saw like, okay, who's already signed for these things, like who's, get ready for it. And it doesn't take a ton of time. It takes maybe like, depending, you have 10, 15 nominations where they're gonna have to sign the wall. It takes, 10, 15 minutes of class
Okay.
potentially, where it's like, but I really think, again, it's like, okay, guys, we're gonna sign the wall. And you
Yeah.
make it into a thing. And it really comes down to, can you sell this to your students? Because if you're just like trying to rush through this and be like, and you don't seem to care very much about it, that's going to then translate onto how they receive it. But if you make it something you're really excited for, like you build up to it, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we're going to applaud after each name. You read the nomination first, and then you do the name, and then you ask for their applause. And then let's
Mm-hmm.
say like the applause isn't loud enough. Like, oh, last period, the applause was a lot louder, guys. Like, you have some fun with it. Some
Yeah.
classes will inevitably be quieter. But as someone who's seen this work, if you make this work, and I'm doing this with high school, like I feel like this would be really easy with like middle school and
Yeah.
elementary school to like, so like, I feel like I've in some ways have the most difficult context where I
Yeah.
have these like busy juniors and seniors sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and they're still applauding for each other. So I promise that it's possible. And I even make it fun. Like, it's like, hey, I'm gonna use a different colored pen for every class period. So you can kind of see
Mm.
which periods show up the
Mm-hmm.
most on there a little bit. And you see like, and I do tell them, I'm like, hey, every once in a while, a student signs every single one of the posters. It's very rare, but it happens, 5 to 10 students a year out of, sometimes almost 200, and a little bit of a challenge. And then that
Yeah.
also, again, a little bit of a permission structure. They know, okay, the vast majority of students aren't going to sign all of them. It's not this
Right.
like, so it kind of takes the pressure down a little bit, but it's a really cool reward where it's like, hey, you signed all the wall, all the different, in this case, all the arms and the legs of the octopus. That means that you showed up in our classroom and made it better in so many different ways over the course of the year. Like, that's a really
Mm-hmm.
cool thing. And I
Oh,
want to celebrate
absolutely.
that. And that's what we do.
Yes. Okay, a couple more logistical
Yeah.
questions. One, I don't think we mentioned this yet, but you don't say the name of the kid who nominated, correct? When
No.
you're announced, you never give that away, basically.
100% anonymous, and you can go
Okay.
through, and every once in a while you're like, I don't necessarily think that was the best nomination, and so I don't know who nominated too. It's a nice thing
Right.
in that sense. So
You don't ever find out who nominated.
yeah, it's every once in a while,
Okay.
like if it's like on an exit ticket of something where they turn in for a grade, I
Okay.
would know, but I try to make it purely anonymous in that sense. But
Okay.
for students, yes, this is I tell them they will not know who you nominated, or
Okay.
so it would be, I keep it anonymous on that end.
Okay. I think it's also relevant that you don't know either, because otherwise, I'm thinking you're going to have people being like, "Mr. Luther, who said that? Who said that? Tell me, tell me." You don't have to deal with that. What do you do? And has this ever happened where you have gone through several cycles of this and you still have like a kid that's just never been nominated? Like, do you intervene in any way to try to like make that happen?
Yeah, I think this is actually it's almost like an internal conflict for me about this
Yeah.
system, is that you're going to have some students who don't get nominated as much. Now, I will say, if you have a wide range of values, it covers that a little bit, and you start to
Yeah.
see people over time get nominated more, at least a couple times. There's
Right.
lots of solutions to this. So one solution that I've used is, okay, today I'm going to ask you to nominate someone in your group, or I'm going to nominate, so that lowers the radius. So then so that
Okay.
helps in that case. Another
Mm-hmm.
thing is, you can weave in your own nominations. In some of my quieter, smaller classes, or with younger
Mm-hmm.
students like freshmen or sophomores, even sometimes, I will do a mixture of my nominations alongside peer nominations in that
Okay.
case. So that way I can kind of like almost make sure that I'm checking the box. And I tell them this, like, hey, like, this is gonna be a mixture of Mr. Luther's nominations and
Okay.
yours. Here are some
Mm-hmm.
things they're getting nominated for. So I think you can adjust based on that. But, and again,
Yeah.
also, I think the permission structure on the front end, not everyone, like, we have other systems of celebration in our classroom. This is going to work for, like, hit for some of you in ways that won't hit for others, because some people move through school really quietly, and I feel like it's okay to honor and respect that they're
Yeah.
not being as vocal and visibly making an impact on the classroom the way others
Yeah.
are. But it's helpful for me. Like, I love having that spreadsheet. I can see visibly who are the kids who aren't being seen and celebrated as much as their classmates. What can
Mm-hmm.
I do about that? Like, that's
Mm.
something I have to reckon with as a teacher, even if it's just a little bit more check-ins with them, more
Yeah.
conversations. And I don't have a perfect solution to this, but I
Yeah.
think I would rather be aware of that than not know in the first place. And this gives me a level of awareness with that too.
Mhm. Um, you had talked a little while ago about like buy-in, particularly from like high school students. And I know that in your article, you mentioned sort of dealing with the eye rolls from students who are just sort of not that into it at the beginning of the year, and talk a little bit about what that progression tends to look like in your experience.
Well, I think early on it is a
Mm.
weird thing. Like in our classroom, like there's this big poster like formation of an octopus, and
Mhm.
I like they ask about it. They're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, we'll get to it. Don't worry." Like a
Yeah.
couple weeks in, and one thing is like I'm at the point like I'm not like the brand new teacher trying to be cool and popular. Like it's like
Yeah.
I'm in decade number 2. I've got my odd quirks and weirdnesses and like with this, and like that is one of them. Is like, oh, there's this random octopus in Mr. Luther's room, so the eye rolls don't bother me. So I feel like it's
Mm.
important to like not worry about it. I also feel like
Yeah.
not every system is going to work for everyone. Like it's okay if some students are like, we're doing that weird peer nomination thing. Like I'm not letting them define the culture of what this is in
Yeah.
in a respectful way. Like I believe in this enough. We're going to push through that. But I
Yeah.
also know that like eye rolls at the beginning of the year aren't necessarily going to be eye rolls throughout the year. And I've had that student who is eye
Mm.
rolling the
Mhm.
first couple times we do this, or even more than the first couple times.
Mm.
I literally, sometimes you get surprised. Like you don't know on the surface what matters. Like I've had a student surprise me where it's like they were the eye roller. And then we go to a family conference and like they're like, "Hey, can you tell my mom and dad about where I signed the octopus?" I'm like, "Time out. Like you were definitely eye rolling when we did this in class." Like I've
Yeah, I
definitely had
love
that
that.
happen. Uh, and then even like students who are at the end of the year who are like saying, "Hey, we need to make sure we sign the octopus today." The students leading the charge on that are the ones who are very much shoulder shrugging it earlier in the year. So I
Yeah.
think buy-in can take time, but
Mhm.
and for me, like the cool thing is like we've done this enough that I am patient and I know we'll get there. But I
Yeah.
get early on that could be something that's kind of a little bit of a turnoff with this. So I think I would say believe in it, be patient, and also
Mhm.
know that like what students are showing you about on the front end doesn't mean they necessarily don't care on the back end.
Yeah, when I read that piece in your article, my first thought was that the early eye rolls from certain types of kids could actually be that they're responding to the vulnerability of that kind of an experience. And so they're immediately just like, I'm way too cool for this. Cause it's like, whoa, like I actually have a need for this, maybe more than other people. And I do not want to expose that right now. So they're going to immediately just be like, oh, this is dumb. And they probably need it more than anybody.
Oh, and I agree with that. And it's also something that like it can change the culture of your classroom. And especially with my older students, we try to even like evolve beyond that. So like in the
Mm,
second semester this past year with my juniors, we would finish a fishbowl seminar or some really collaborative experience. And I'd ask them to write down an affirmation and I'd say, okay, like we're not doing like the whole like anonymous Google form thing today. Go
mm.
find them and tell them. And
Oof.
literally, I just sit back and you just watch them all go around, and they're not going to their best friends. They're going to different people because they had already they thought this was going to be anonymous, right? But like
Yeah.
we've built to that. That's something that when I talk about
Yeah.
like backwards planning for classroom culture, I wouldn't. That doesn't work day one, right? Like we've
Right.
got to that point, and it's something that for me, it's like a really cool and powerful thing because like I teach at a public high school, 2,000 students. They don't know each other for the most part when they walk in there, and we don't have very many places in society where you just got put in a room with a bunch of people
Mhm.
you don't know, you didn't choose
Mhm.
to be there with. You might not even chose Mr. Luther, right? The counselor
Yeah.
put you in that class for certain classes, and we're still going to make that happen. And I feel like yes, it's really important to like find communities that you choose that are affirming for you, whether it's like a sports team or a club. Like I love all of those things, but I also feel like it's important to be able to build community with people you didn't choose to have a community with, because
Mhm.
that's life. And
Yeah.
when it happens, it's almost more impactful when this group that were relative strangers to each other are walking around the room sharing affirmations with each other aloud and receiving
Yeah.
those too. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes I talk about the skill of giving affirmation. I feel like it's also a skill. Can you receive affirmation from your classmates? Are you okay having the class applaud for you while people say nice things about you? For some
Mm-hmm.
students, that's something that they don't like initially. And I want to honor that, but I also want to like, everyone's deserving of that. And so my guess is you can listen to this and be like, this feels a little pie in the sky. Like I've again, a decade of doing this, it works, at least in my context and lots of different classroom contexts. And it's worth aiming for. Like even in the years where, or the classrooms where it doesn't work perfectly, you still get so many individual moments with students where you're like, oh, I emailed home to your parent about the nice things that these people said about you. And that student who was known for being good in school, getting top grades, they're like, oh, this is something I actually need to work on. Like my students or my classmates aren't nominating me as much as all the other people. What can I do about that? And I've had some really good
Yeah.
conversations about that. So I feel like there's just so many benefits.
Yeah.
And it's just, and again, I'm not trying to sell this, like only use it if you want to go for it. It's
Right.
a pretty simple idea. It's just toss some posters up on the wall and ask students to say who's living out those values in your classroom. But if you use it intentionally and you build it into a system, I feel like it really does open the door to so myriad benefits to make the classroom a better place for students.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't cover this earlier on, but just to summarize, you came up with those 8 values. It could be almost any. It could be something co-constructed with students. It could be the school's like mission statement or their stated values. This is not dependent on one specific set of values.
Not at all.
Okay.
And as someone who, like, I'm someone like the first couple weeks are crazy. So I
Yeah.
like to have it all set up when they walk in, knowing how many students I have and the things we're doing those first couple weeks. I've had people ask like, well, why don't you get student input on those? I think that's a fair question. And if you're able to
Hmm.
co-create them, I think that's awesome. I know like Adrian Neibauer is someone who's like really good. His first week of school does a ton of co-creation with agreements, things like that. But he's got his like 1 fifth grade classroom.
Yeah.
For me, that's too much. So what I do
Yeah.
is on the back end of the school year is actually ask students for feedback of, okay, which was most important in our classroom?
Mm-hmm.
What would be some different values or core beliefs that we can add in? And I use that feedback then. It's part of my summer reflection. Okay, how can I tweak and adjust this for the upcoming year? Because it really, in no back-to-back years have they been the exact same. Like they always
Okay.
change a little bit. And that's based on the previous year's feedback from students.
Yeah. Do, for a teacher who is sort of struggling with classroom management in general or behavior or discipline, do you feel like this system contributes to a better classroom climate overall?
I think it changes what you look for, right? Like it's like
Mm,
in the sense of, and also just changes what you see. And I'll acknowledge this is a harder system to roll out when it feels like everything's on fire. And
yeah.
I've had like this past year, I had one class period. I'm not going to name the number, but like it took a lot of work to get there. But
Mm,
I will say, I'm really glad I didn't stop looking for the good and listening for the good from each other in those classes because you
yeah.
learn a lot about the class when you ask them to fill out something like this. Because that student who's,
Mm,
a little bit more rambunctious and maybe being a little bit more disruptive, when you ask them to fill out one of these nomination forms, how they respond tells you something about them. In the same way, when their peers nominate them for something that surprises them, that tells you something about them too. Or when they don't get nominated and you want to check in with them, that's
yeah.
another opportunity. So for me, I see it as another lens into understanding how students are doing in the classroom and a lens that's student centered because students are the ones who are affording it to me, as opposed to just what I assume. Because I have
Yeah.
been wrong so many times about
Yeah.
a student in the sense of I didn't notice one of the things they were doing well. And I also just think it's a cool thing to say, hey, I'm going to make space to look for what's good and we're going to celebrate what's good in the classroom because like you value what you make space for, right? And like, so I'm going to make sure that we do that.
Yes. And having that different lens, having that broader lens on each kid that is more positive, I think can help an overwhelmed teacher process and handle classroom disruptions in such a different way. If you've got a more well-rounded view of this kid and what other things they bring into, their peers' lives and the space and everything, just, yeah, having a more positive lens on every student can only be a good thing.
Oh, and I think the other thing I'd add is like when I talked about earlier on, like I didn't want those posters to gather dust, right? Like I want them to be like, we're coming back to this again and again. Like I've got them on every desk label with their desk number. I've got them, like we talk about them at the beginning of the year. We even do surveys like, hey, which of these values are we living out really well as a classroom community? And which are the ones that we need to do better on and why? And then now that's a classroom conversation, right?
Yeah.
So like it in a way, like it's an accountability lens for teachers, like for me, like it's like, hey, and I've every year it's like, oh, this one we did really well. This one, not a lot of people talked about it or signed for it. So maybe I need to make some adjustments going forward. So it's another lens, not just into your students, but it's also a lens into your own practices and what you're doing in the classroom as a teacher. So, and honestly, sometimes a much more helpful lens than just a bunch of like, test scores on a spreadsheet.
Oh gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you've got this whole system all written out with pictures and everything. And so that's going to be published the same day as this interview. Where can people find you online? And let's also mention your podcast too.
Yeah. We're still going with thebrokencopier.substack.com. It's just a combination of like interviews with different folks. And then also really trying to like share resources and ideas and sometimes like some longer reflections. I think one I'm working on right now is we just had our first year with Yonder pouches. So what was that like? So just like, I'm a big fan of any place, including this one, that says, hey, what's working? Let's share it with others, because I'm the teacher I am right now because so many people were generous in sharing their wisdom and learnings with me in my formative years and still going on. And I just feel like the best way to live that out is to pay it forward and say, hey, here's something that's working in my classroom. And I'd love to share it with others. And I really am grateful for having this space because that's what this has been each time I've been on. So thank you for having me here today too.
Man, your ideas are always just absolutely spectacular and so simple to implement too every time. So I just thank you for coming on, and you are welcome back anytime.
And feel free to share. Like, I would love if you create your own poster formation, reach out, let me know. Like I would love to see, like I've, after doing these conversations sometimes with previous things I've talked about, I've gotten like emails or, messages from people from all over saying, hey, here's what I did in my classroom. I would love to see it. That absolutely makes my day. So if you're gracious enough to do that, do not hesitate. That would make my day.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Marcus.
Thank you, Jen.
To see pictures of Marcus's classroom system and find links to the resources that can get you started using his system in your classroom, visit cultofpedagogy.com, click podcast, and choose episode 276. To get a regular email from me about my newest blog posts, podcast episodes, courses, products, and speaking services, sign up for my mailing list at cultofpedagogy.com/subscribe. And to learn more about mastering the lesson plan, visit cultofpedagogy.com/teaching101. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.